What's up, folks? We're back this week for this week's review for Dark Side of the Ring. And this week's episode is Cocaine and Cowboy Boots, the Abrams story. And before we get started with this episode, I gotta automatically say it is always a pleasure to see Mick Foley. He's one of my favorite people I've met, one of the favorite people in the business. Just him gracing his presence on this episode was just automatically a treat. His storytelling skills are so underrated. If you ever see him in stand-up, I highly recommend that you do. Let me tell some amazing stories. So him being one of the people that they interviewed for this story was definitely a big plus for me. But man, Abrams and the WTF. I mean... and UWF, because yes, WTF, this was a lot. And although like, so this episode gave me a lot of foreshadowing because everyone was talking about him in the past tense, and typically, you know, the main person or the main focus of the episode, if they're alive, they're on it. The fact that he wasn't, and you know, so many people talking about him in the past tense, I was like, ooh, let's kind of see how this plays out, because you know, I didn't know too much about the story, but it definitely was a treat. And although the story is kind of erotic at times, it does have like a really like fulfilling ending, because like at the end of it, no matter what, people love this guy. You know, Herb gave people chances that they would have never had, and although he was a super fan of wrestling, a mark as they call him, with a lot of money, you know, and may not have just knew the business, he definitely did try his best to give people opportunities. I mean, hell, he even tried to work with Vince McMahon ultimately before trying to work against Vince McMahon. And so many people have tried to go against WWE, WWF, and have failed miserably. And it's kind of, you know, when I kind of think about it, it's kind of eerie, because Chris Jericho's narrating it, considering, you know, he was in WCW. We knew what happened in WCW. Now he's in AEW. I wonder if, like, of all these stories of people that's tried to go against against Vince McMahon and WWF, does that, like, ever sits in the back of their mind, like, can we do it? So many people for generations have tried, with huge amount of money, no matter what the circumstances were, just nothing could do it. I mean, even, you know, Herb was signing major talent too, and it just wasn't enough. You know, he had Andre the Giant on his roster. Like, that's amazing, even though Vince called him right back. But like, so initially, you know, Herb's story about a promoter that's just wanting to run wrestling with a lot of money and stuff like that, it sounds really casual in the stint, besides a lot of money part, but with, you know, independent wrestling, with people who are trying to run shows, and you know, just that philosophy of people wanting to have a business and run independent shows. And this, you know, there are some of these independent promoters that are like, I want to go against WWE at some point. And although that's, you know, it's a goal to want to have your business grow that much, ultimately we know that's just not attainable, as we've seen so many different promotions fail against going against them. But again, that philosophy of, hey, I want to have a promotion to run against Vince McMahon, it just resonated with me because I have heard it on so many different occasions. So Herb being that type of person I wanted to do it, I was just like, okay, yeah, just same thing's been happening for years. But then Herb just had a lot of steam under him because he had the money backing, the motivation. He was able to really pull in some interesting talent. But he had good people around him. His best friend was, you know, somebody that truly helped him a lot of the way. His best friend, you know, this was the first time he ever told the real story of the UWF. So, you know, that was really cool to get this story out there, because it had never been told before. But Herb, this 5-foot guy, loved to party. He loved to party with his nose candy and his strippers. And that lifestyle, as we've seen on so many different avenues and ventures, is eventually going to catch up to you. It is just not a sustainable lifestyle for people. And yes, he partied like no other, as everyone described. He lived his life to the fullest. He was always high and always wanted to indulge in some in stripper mentalities, like in that lifestyle. So, you know, it's just not a good recipe when you're trying to run a legit business. And you know, this is mentality of booking, inserting himself on shows, which is never a good thing, and him being high at shows and the show's not drawn, and then you have the stress of that money not adding up and being high. It was just a ticking time bomb to eventually just overflow, explode at some point. But throughout this episode, I was wondering, when are we going to find out what happened to him? Because as it got into close to the final minutes of it, I was just like, we've been hearing a lot about of him in third person, but what ultimately happened to him in 1996? He eventually did pass. Now this is the really crazy part. So the last accounts of of him alive and people have known about it was that they say he was high off coke all over his body, baby oil all over his body, running around a hotel period, butt naked, chasing strippers and people with a bat. If that don't sound like something off of The Hangover, I don't know what to tell you, because that's just absolutely ludicrous. It sounds absolutely crazy. I'm pretty sure that's where The Hangover probably got their motivation from in some of those scenes that they shot with people just being completely off the chain. Because even though they had the reenactment, so I get this vision it oh yeah, I definitely can tell what was going on there. And then hearing stories about when he get high, how he got destructive and he always wanted to destroy cushions and throw cushions all over the place. This little 5-foot guy, man, he had a lot of energy, and even though this is like a crazy story, he was just the life of the party. He was all over the place, man. He just with his paranoia from the coke, thinking people was watching him and listening to him and coming for him. The guy was just living a crazy life. And he was well known for his cowboy boots. That was his thing. So no matter how naked he got, he always had his cowboy boots on. Again, people, if you see The Hangover, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. You've seen this before. But the one thing that I think was crazy about this is that Herb really wanted to be the life of the party. He wanted to be the focal of the promotion. He wanted to be the man. He wanted to be legend. It wasn't until the fact that after he passed that he got that status, because there's so many conflicting stories about his death. They're saying he died in jail from a seizure. They say he died because he ran into a wall after chasing somebody and he completely passed out. Said he died in the cop car. So many different stories. And they're all conflicting, so no one truly knows. Even somebody said that they seen him, and the possibility that he may still be alive after all this time. This is crazy. But it was a very entertaining episode. I definitely think this one was definitely a different pace from the other episodes. I mean, yes, we definitely seen people, and being in drugs and gangs and all that stuff. But the fact that this guy he was living his Vegas lifestyle all over. That's all it was. And eventually it caught up to him. The lifestyle wasn't sustainable in order to try to run a business. And ultimately, if he had been sober, going against Vince McMahon is still just a test that a lot of people, almost no one, has ever been able to accomplish. So yeah, but definitely check this episode out. I can't wait for next week. And man, these last couple of weeks are going to be some really crazy episodes. So definitely want to make sure you stay tuned for reviews coming at you here soon and each and every week. Thank you for listening.